You can believe me or not, but what I'm about to tell you actually happened to me. I don't share this story lightly, partly because people usually laugh it off, and partly because talking about it brings the memories back too clearly. Even now, years later, I still wake up in a cold sweat, hearing the whispers. It was 15 years ago during the fall. I was fresh out of college and broke, so I took a seasonal job as a forest ranger. It seemed like a dream job at first. Long stretches of quiet, surrounded by nature with no people to bother me. The area I was assigned to was massive, hundreds of acres of dense woods, twisting trails, and a deep, black lake at its center. There was one thing about the place, though. Locals called it Whispering Woods. They said you shouldn't go into the forest after dark. It was an old wives' tale, I thought. Every small town has one. I didn't pay it any attention. The first month went by smoothly. Days were spent hiking, cleaning up trails, and making sure campers weren't starting illegal fires. The nights, quiet. Too quiet, if I'm being honest. It was the kind of silence that presses against your ears, making you feel like something is just waiting for you to drop your guard. Then came the night I heard the whispers for the first time. I was in the Watchtower, a good 50 feet above the forest floor, going over my logbook. The wind had been picking up all evening, whistling through the trees. But then I noticed something strange. The wind wasn't random anymore. It sounded rhythmic, almost intentional. I put down my pen and stepped outside onto the deck. That's when I heard it. It was faint at first, like a soft hum carried on the wind. But as I strained to listen, the sound became clearer. Voices. Not one or two, but dozens. Men, women, children, all speaking at once in a language I couldn't understand. It wasn't coming from the trees around me, though. No, it was coming from the direction of the lake. I told myself it was just campers messing around, maybe playing some kind of prank. But deep down, I knew better. Those voices didn't sound like they belonged to anyone alive. I stayed in the tower the rest of the night, my flashlight gripped tightly in my hand, too scared to even sleep. The next morning, I decided to investigate. I needed to prove to myself that there was a rational explanation. The lake was about a mile from the tower, hidden deep in the forest. The walk there was unsettling. The birds were silent, and even the squirrels seemed to avoid the area. When I reached the lake, the water was so still it looked like glass. No ripples, no movement. Just this eerie, perfect stillness. But what really caught my attention was the shoreline. It was covered in footprints, hundreds of them overlapping, circling the edge of the lake. Some were small, like a child's. Others were massive, far larger than any human foot I'd ever seen. They didn't lead anywhere. No trail into the forest, no path to a campsite. They just circled the lake as if whoever, or whatever, made them had been pacing for hours. I left immediately, my heart pounding in my chest. That night, the whispers came back, louder this time, and closer. I could hear them from inside the cabin where I slept. They were just outside the window, but when I looked, there was nothing there. I locked the doors, closed the blinds, and tried to drown out the noise with music, but it didn't help. The whispers were inside my head. The next few days were hell. The whispers followed me everywhere. I'd hear them while patrolling the trails, coming from the trees. I'd hear them in the tower, circling below me. I even heard them in my dreams, though they weren't dreams anymore. They were nightmares. The worst part was the figure. It started as just a shadow in my peripheral vision, a tall, thin shape that seemed to vanish whenever I turned to look. But soon, it began to linger. I'd see it standing at the edge of the tree line, always watching. Its limbs were impossibly long, and its head tilted unnaturally to one side, as if it were studying me. One night, I woke up to find it standing at the foot of my bed. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, its face hidden in shadow. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. I could only lie there, frozen in terror, until it slowly backed away into the darkness. That was the night I decided to leave. I didn't even pack my things. I just grabbed my keys, jumped into my truck, and drove as fast as I could down the dirt road leading out of the forest. As I passed the lake, I made the mistake of glancing in my rearview mirror. They were there, dozens of figures, standing shoulder to shoulder on the shore watching me leave. Their faces were pale, almost glowing in the moonlight, and their eyes were completely black. I didn't stop driving until I was miles away. To this day, I don't know what I saw in those woods. I don't know what the whispers were or what they wanted from me. All I know is that I'll never go back. Some places aren't meant to be disturbed. And if you ever find yourself near Whispering Woods, take my advice. Don't go near the lake. Don't stay after dark. And whatever you do, don't listen to the whispers.